Welcome to Crime Files TikTok Compilations, the vault of real horror, where murder isn't fiction and the footage never lies. In this collection, we unearth chilling clips, haunting case files, and real-life moments that expose the darkest corners of the human mind. What you're about to witness is raw, unsettling, and unforgettable. These aren't stories, they're warnings.
We're getting divorced because it was our decision. It's my best friend. I still love her to death. Like, we still got a child together. We still gonna be hanging out.
The husband that you just saw in that video murdered his wife. But according to the police in Nashville, it was a suicide. And they fought the victim's family members, claiming that it was a suicide and not a murder for over a year. Just recently, the man in that video was arrested, but he still may escape justice. My wife and I have been working with the family of the victim on this case for a while now, and we really need your help to make sure justice is served. But first, we need to tell you the story of what happened. On July 29th, 2023, at around 3:30 in the afternoon, the Nashville Fire Department was called to the apartment of April Holt, an apartment that she shared with her then husband Donovan Holt and April's two children, Serenity and Denzel. Now, according to what Donovan, the husband, told the police, April had gone into the bathroom of their apartment, she had gone quiet, and eventually he discovered that she had killed herself. And that's when he found her lying unresponsive on the floor. Now, initially, Donovan failed to disclose a major piece of information that was discovered at the crime scene. That April Holt was discovered with a black garbage bag type sack wrapped tightly around her head. He did not tell the responding officers about this bag. He didn't tell the hospital staff. He did not tell April's family members. But at the end of the day, it didn't end up mattering. Because as you can see on these official reports, after examining April's body, the medical examiner, the autopsy technician, they all agreed that she had simply killed herself. But we have to introduce Jamie. Jamie is April's biological mother. A little background on Jamie. Jamie got pregnant when she was a teenager in high school and decided that she would have her baby. So that led to April being born. And while she was in high school, Jamie met her future husband, Jeremiah. The two of them then raised April and the other children they would have. And to this day, they remain a happy family. Well, minus one of them. Jamie, from the moment that April was found dead inside of her apartment, knew that something wasn't right. And so she immediately started raising the alarm. She was informing detectives of the fights that April and Donovan had been getting into. She informed them of the fact that April had recently started filing for divorce. She told them that April, just days before she was killed, had been sexually assaulted by someone that wasn't her husband. She was raising red flag after red flag. But time and time again, detectives with the Nashville PD told her, you need to stop looking into this. This is a suicide, not a murder. I'm putting some notes on screen right now showing the efforts that Jamie, April's mother, went to try get this suicide ruling overturned and changed to a homicide ruling. She wrote letters to every single public official she could think of. She wrote letters to the chief of police. She wrote letters to the district attorney. She even sent letters to the governor and the White House. But no one seemed to be listening. But why was Jamie so convinced that this was a murder and not a suicide? Well, it's pretty crazy actually. First of all, April's young son Denzel actually heard Donovan and April arguing in the bathroom just a short while before April was found dead. At one point, Denzel even claimed that he looked under the bathroom door and saw his mother lying on the ground, silent, not moving. After he saw this, Donovan came out of the bathroom. Donovan then cooked the kids a meal in the kitchen, and after a little while, Donovan sent Denzel, his young son, into the bedroom to check on April, his mother. Yes, that's right. Denzel ended up being the one that found his own mother lying unresponsive on the floor of the bathroom. So things about this timeline don't necessarily make sense. There's the fact that Denzel saw his mother April lying on the floor of their bedroom unresponsive, and she was later found in the bathroom unresponsive. There's the fact that Denzel did not see the bag over his mother's head when he first saw her lying on the bedroom floor. There's the fact that Donovan and April were allegedly, according to Denzel, screaming at each other, yelling. But according to Donovan's official story at the time that this all happened, they just happened to walk in there and find April unresponsive. The last time he saw her, she was acting normally, and she had done something in that bathroom to end her own life. But this story gets more convoluted as you go down the rabbit hole. And in my next TikTok, I'm going to expose some of the most insane failures that I've ever seen from a police department to investigate a crime properly. Keep watching, I'm trying to make this story blow up. So if you've made it this far, there's a petition in my TikTok bio that I'm going to link, and it's a petition to get these charges that Donovan is charged with upgraded so that he can receive the justice that he deserves. Now, all parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, but as you're going to see in the next TikTok video that I'm posting, Donovan was recently arrested, and it was found that his entire story, the thing that he swore by happened to the police, was a complete and utter fabrication. And when I show you the details of what exactly happened, I think that you all are going to be shocked. But please help us get justice for April Holt by signing the petition linked in my bio. And if you're interested in this story and seeing what happens next,
Thought you knew me last week, you don't know me this week, because so many decisions have been made and my life is completely transformed. And yes, you can transform your whole
the woman you just saw in that video, April Lynn Holt, was murdered in July of 2023. But for over a year, the police in Nashville claimed it was a suicide, and they ignored the cries of help from the victim's family members who knew that this was a murder. In the first part of this series, I explained what exactly happened on that day. According to Donovan, April's husband, who has now been arrested, on that day, April went into the bathroom in their apartment. He didn't check on her for a while, and later on, he sent his young son into the bathroom where he found his mother's unresponsive body. Now, immediately, there were so many red flags here, and my wife and I, who have been following this story and working with the victim's family to bring this series to you, have gotten access to some documents that will show you extreme police failures in this case, lies, deceit, and what I'm about to show you, I think will make you very angry. So, like I said before, the police claim that this was a suicide, and they refuse to look at this as a homicide. So let's take a look right here at the Office of the Medical Examiner's report talking about the death of April Lynn Holt. I'm going to read you right now the official summary of this case from this document. The decedent is a 29-year-old female who was discovered unresponsive in her home by family on July 29, 2023. The decedent reportedly had a bag secured around her head at the time of discovery that was cut off by her spouse. She was transported to Southern Hills Medical Center where she was diagnosed with an anoxic brain injury. Her condition continued to decline and brain death was pronounced on July 31, 2023. The decedent had a reported past medical history of alcohol and marijuana abuse. Her mental health history is unknown, and it is not known if she had any prior suicidal attempts, threats, or ideations. Of note, the decedent was reportedly the victim of a sexual assault recently. She was also going through a divorce per investigative reports. Law enforcement was not suspicious of foul play. So there are immediately a few things wrong with that. So Jamie, April's mother, who we've been working with throughout this whole thing, knows the truth about her daughter, and her daughter did not have substance abuse problems. This was something that was completely fabricated by Donovan, April's husband at the time of her death, who's been accused of her murder. And it seems like the police in this case were overly eager to listen to Donovan's every word and accept them as truth, even after his own wife was found dead in his bathroom with a bag wrapped around her head, and his own son reported hearing him and his wife arguing before this happened. Now, if we actually look at the toxicology reports, April, at the time of her death, had nothing in her system. She had no alcohol in her system. She had no recreational drugs. She did have medication that was taken for seizures and epilepsy, but that's about it. But Donovan told the police officers that she had this substance abuse problem, and Detective Timothy Skopek actually paid a visit to the medical examiner and for some reason told the medical examiner about this supposed alcohol and drug use problem, and it made its way onto the official report like I just showed you. But this was a falsehood. Why was the detective inserting this information into this official report that wasn't true, that had no merit? There was no proof, there's no documented rehabilitation stays, nothing like that. But this is only going to get more and more convoluted. So as you can see from this original report, April's cause of death was complications of suffocation. The manner of death was suicide. And circumstances of death were decedent secured bag around head. But just recently, this autopsy report was amended. As you can see here on this fixed report, they didn't even bother to generate a new report. They just crossed things out and added new wording. The complications of suffocation became strangulation. The manner of death went from suicide to homicide. And the circumstances of death went from decedent secured bag around head to decedent was strangled by another person. But why is that? Why did the police finally change this ruling after more than a year? Well, Jamie, April's mother, has fought tirelessly for her daughter and for justice. Jamie, like I mentioned in the last TikTok, has been sending messages and emails and handwritten letters to all sorts of people in the government officials in Tennessee and federal officials, but no one listened. Finally though, earlier this year, Jamie got Donovan, April's husband at the time of her death, who's now been accused of murdering her, on the phone. And on that phone call, Jamie got Donovan to confess to strangling his wife, April, Jamie's daughter. Now, according to Jamie, when she finally got Donovan on the phone to ask him questions, he would only talk to her on a FaceTime type situation where he could see who was in the room, who was listening in, but Jamie recorded the call with an iPhone set up behind her computer. And on this phone call, Donovan admitted that he had killed April, but his story was that he killed her by accident. According to Donovan's story, on that morning that she died, he and April were having violent, freaky sex, and he was choking her, and he ended up choking her to death in the middle of this sexual act. He then freaked out, tried to stage the thing as a suicide, and called the police. But there are so many things, objectively, that I see that are personally wrong with that story. In these reports, it's shown that April Holt was attacked and sexually assaulted by someone that wasn't Donovan just 2 days before she was found dead. In my wife and I's opinion, someone wouldn't be engaging in hardcore intercourse just days after they were violated by another man. In addition, let's look at these documents that were generated by the Nashville Police Department that Jamie, April's mother, gave us access to. Jamie has discussed these documents and their findings at length on her TikTok profile already. We're just reporting on some facts here, trying to get these charges upgraded to what they really should be. So it should be noted here that what you're about to hear and see are writings from a detective who was analyzing evidence found at the scene of April's death. Now keep in mind, this wasn't treated as a crime scene because it was labeled a suicide. And as you'll see in what I'm about to show you, the officers have tried to do everything in their power to stop this from turning into a murder, especially one detective. But let's take a look. So here the detective writes in his document, I reviewed the photographs of the crime scene. The crime scene photos gave a good depiction of what I read in the reports that were available. I noted there were 3 journals that appeared to have been written by the victim, aka April. They were mentioned in the report as well. CSI Ward photographed them and their contents. I attempted to read through them. So what I'm about to show you, this comes from these official reports. These are the final journal entries of April Lynn Holt, some of which was written on the morning that she was killed. April's children reported to the police that the morning that April died, she was in an upbeat, happy mood. She was going to go meet her mother Jamie at church that morning, and one of their last memories of their mother is seeing April sitting down in the apartment, drinking some coffee and writing in her journal. Here's the wording from the reports. The book laying on the couch, which refers to April's journal, was open to a page that read, I'm that bitch, human beings. Also in the journal were the words, like WTF, I see it now, you was never here for this vow, so now it's chow, fuck you. So it's a known fact that April and Donovan were going through a divorce at the time that this all happened, and they had been back and forth like this for years, but this was definitely the most serious that April had ever been about finally separating from Donovan, which is something the authorities seem to never have considered in this case. But right here in this journal entry, I interpret this as April finally realizing that she was upset with this marriage and how it was handled. In fact, Donovan, within the first year of the couple's marriage, was already cheating on April. And by the end, when April died, Donovan was cheating on April and April had been cheating on Donovan. So it was a toxic situation. But in these journals, April continues writing. She says, like WTF, I'm paying all the bills, sending you money, and you have the audacity to pay for another bitch lunch with my money. Man, fuck you. I've settled enough. I need a man, not a fan. There should be a bond. Again, N-word, suing women. We aren't your admin. We don't work for you. Shit, I should sue for my wasted time. I know I'm in my prime. And you fucked up, was never fully mine. Now, these diary entries are very telling, but they continue. The detective writing this report then writes, the book continues with single points that may or not be words to a song. It speaks of the need for rest and to be alone, but also talks of being a mom and having a lot of responsibility. Now, another quote from the diary, life doesn't stop because this experience happened. I have to be strong. I have to be here for everybody else. Assumedly, April is referring to the sexual assault that she suffered just days before her death. In fact, the detective notes this in the report, and he quotes the diary again. April had written, I'm embarrassed, I feel ashamed, I don't want people to know or asking or judging or getting involved. I just want to be alone and act like it didn't happen. I know I'm supposed to go to the ER and put in a police report. Now this is interesting. Courtney, my wife, and I have grown close with Jamie, Jeremiah, and April's entire family at this point. And April, according to them, and this has been documented, actually did go in to seek medical care and wanted this sexual assault to be reported in its own way. But according to them, the wait lines were incredibly long. But after those long waits, April was told that she would have to go to another location to report and be examined. And so she gave up on the whole thing and went home. But back to this report. Another page is labeled "The Day After" and starts out with a quote from April. "I feel so ashamed, dirty, hurting physically. I know it's not my fault." And the detective continues, the writings continue and seem to change paths again, saying things like, "We're not making love no more, but I still love you. I still pray for you. You helped me grow. You taught me. You made me a mom." So objectively, we can assume that in that diary entry, April is referring to Donovan. Hence the phrase, "You taught me. You made me a mom. You helped me grow." I don't know who else would make April a mother other than Donovan, the father of her child. But it's also got something really interesting in that entry, which once again was written shortly before she died. There's the phrase, "We're not making love no more, but I still love you." So make this make sense to me. So according to the story that is being presented right now, Donovan and April were having that wild, freaky, violent sex, which led to her death. But not only did April write down in her journal shortly before she died, "We're not making love no more," but she was also sexually assaulted just a few days prior. So does it make sense to you that they would be making love and having sex in a violent, brutal sense, brutal enough sex that April would die from it? With all these circumstances and evidence, I mean, it makes no sense to me. All parties are considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, but April's journals themselves contain a lot of wild evidence, so let's continue looking. As you can see here in this document, Jamie, April's mother, you're going to see her writing throughout these documents. That is her with the orange pen. She wrote that these were some of her most recent entries. April wrote, "Woke up a year older and excited to watch my life come together. Asked God to be in her life, especially my mental health. Overwhelmed, give it to God. Can't rely on Donovan. Asks God to provide her $1,500 for rent. Doing better than I ever had. I look and feel great. I am separated from my husband. It's a great day. Take back control of my life. God, you have woven my life together so perfectly. God, what are you doing for me? I was reported for the 3rd time yesterday. I am scared. How am I supposed to make money to provide? I need clarity." So in all these journal entries, April seems to be ready for divorce. She seems to be confident. She's already mentally moved on from Donovan. She's ready to become this mother, this independent woman, a powerful woman. If you read through her journals, she's constantly affirming herself and providing herself with positive encouragement and wording. And yeah, none of this still seems to feed into the story that is being presented right now, that this was some freak accident during freaky sex. Now, this is just my opinion and my wife's opinion. We're not accusing anybody of anything. We're just presenting these facts to you guys. And if you agree with us that this seems to have been more than a situation like that, you can sign the petition that's linked in my TikTok biography. This is incredibly important to us. So please, if you could share this petition, get the word out about this. This is going to be a long and thorough series. So I hope you guys tune back in for the second part, because we're going to get into the police investigation, how corrupt the whole thing was, character witnesses, other evidence, and just really bizarre things that don't make sense, because there are still a lot of bombshells in this story. And at this very moment, the charges that have been levied against Donovan, April's husband, would only really give him a maximum sentence of 12 years in prison. He's essentially being charged with an accidental homicide and not a second-degree murder. And they're once again believing his story, even though the first time it was proven that he lied to investigators, to family members. He said that his wife killed herself when he admitted to strangling her. So why are we believing the second story now? Yeah, I'm going to continue this series in part 3. I know these are very long videos. Thank you for watching. And yeah, part 3, we're going to continue taking a deeper look. And by the end of this, I think you're just going to be shocked. I certainly am. Even now, after studying this and working with the family, it still gets me pissed.
This influencer murdered his wife on Instagram Live. On August 11, 2023, a Bosnian influencer by the name of Norman Solomovic went on Instagram Live and told his audience that he was going to kill his wife. He then turned his camera around and showed the disfigured face of his wife. She was sitting down with a look of defeat and her face was completely swollen. Not just that, guys, there was blood all over the place. Guys, it turns out that the bodybuilder, who was 10 times his wife's size, beat her up before the stream. And on the next couple of seconds of the stream, he can be heard calling his wife names and told her that that it was her fault that she was going to die. Guys, it turns out that the wife had previously reported him to the police for hitting her. He actually had a long history of abuse against his wife, but the police never really did anything. Anyways, guys, in the live stream, I heard something that absolutely broke my heart. A baby can be heard crying and screaming throughout the entire live stream. The baby was actually laying on the floor panicking. The man then told his followers that the baby was his and that his wife hid the child from him for over a week. The man then picked up a gun, pointed it at his wife's head, and then fired one shot into her forehead, killing her instantly. And after unaliving his wife, he told his followers to come and pick up his child because he didn't want his child anymore. People watching the stream then called the police, but before the police arrived, he ended up taking the life of 2 more people, his younger son and the stranger that was in the area. And when the police finally arrived, the juice head got into a shootout with them and ended up taking his own life. This was all live stream, by the way, including the police.
So, about to be a newly single mom, and I am in the middle of a divorce.
On December 10, 2024, 30-year-old Jennifer Sheffield posted a TikTok updating her followers on her divorce. In the video, she said that everything was great and that her husband, Brandon Sheffield, was being supportive and they were splitting things evenly. But then her tone shifted. She admitted that she was nervous and for the first time she would have to handle a mortgage on her own. She even asked her followers for money-saving tips. Jennifer posted a video unaware she was documenting the final moments of her life. 18 days later, she was gone. On December 28, 2024 at 7:19 a.m., police in Brandon, Mississippi were called to Jennifer and Brandon's home. Family members had noticed that something wasn't right, so they called police for a welfare check. And when officers arrived, what they found made their stomachs turn. Inside the home were 2 bodies, Jennifer and Brandon. Investigators later confirmed that Brandon shot Jennifer, then turned the gun on himself. And here's where things get even worse. One of their daughters was inside the house when this happened. Jennifer was a mother of 2 little girls and had big dreams. She was in a master's program at Mississippi College, hoping to become a doctor.
I come here twice a week in the morning just for their breakfast burritos, which are...
On the morning of April 22nd, 2024, a 10-year-old boy in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma called the police. And this 10-year-old boy told the police dispatcher that his 3 brothers and his mother and father were all dead. On the night before, John Candy, the boy's father, had gotten into an altercation with his mother, Lindsay. This caused John to snap and shoot and kill his wife. Afterwards, John then turned the gun on his young children. And as the police described, he, quote, systematically went through the home shooting and killing the children. The police sergeant who spoke on the record also stated that, quote, those children were hunted down and killed, end quote. The victims included 18-year-old Dylan, 14-year-old Ethan, and 12-year-old Lucas. But the Candy's 10-year-old son slept through the murders, and it's unknown exactly why John skipped over killing him. From the outside looking in, everybody said that the Candy family was practically perfect. That John, the father, was your average goofy dad. And all the pictures that they took and posted seemed to show this. It's also eerie because John and his wife Lindsay, who he would go on to murder before killing himself, appeared on a local news segment shortly before the murders, talking about how much they loved a local eatery. But this is just a horrible situation and a story that I feel like we hear far too often in America. And the motive behind this crime is still unknown. If you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast that I co-host with my wife Courtney, Murder in America. It's available on all streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Oh my God, bro. Oh my God. Crazy, dog.
This is the story of Marietta Matthews, aged 26, a beautiful and smart girl who had a bright future ahead of her, and Tamiko Merriweather, a loving and caring mother who dedicated her life to helping others, who were both murdered by the boyfriend of Marietta. They were killed by Nathan Rashad James, a 24-year-old man who had a history of mental illness and violence. Marietta Matthews was born on June 6, 1994, in Dallas, Texas. She was the daughter of Tamiko Merriweather, a nurse, and Michael Matthews, a businessman. She had 2 brothers, Michael Jr. and Marcus, who were both younger than her. Marietta was a bright and beautiful girl who loved music, dancing, and fashion. She graduated from Skyline High School in 2012, where she was a popular and outgoing student. She was involved in many extracurricular activities and also excelled academically and received several awards and scholarships. She attended the University of North Texas, where she majored in business administration. She wanted to start her own fashion line and become an entrepreneur. She graduated from college in 2016 with honors. Marietta's mother Tomiko was born on March 3, 1965, in Atlanta, Georgia. She moved to Dallas with her family when she was a child. She was a kind and compassionate person who always helped others in need. She became a registered nurse and worked at the Parkland Hospital for over 20 years. She specialized in neonatal care and saved many lives of premature babies. She was a devoted mother who raised her 3 children with love and care. She was also a devout Christian who attended the New Life Fellowship Church. Marietta and Tomiko had a close and loving relationship. They shared many interests and hobbies. They often spent time together shopping, watching movies, or going to the spa. They also confided in each other about their personal issues and gave each other advice. Marietta met Nathan in 2019 through a mutual friend. They started dating soon after and moved in together in an apartment in Dallas. Nathan was born on July 7, 1996, in Houston, Texas. He was the son of Sandra James, a single mother who struggled with drug addiction and poverty. He had a troubled childhood and dropped out of school at an early age. He became involved in gangs and crime and had a history of domestic violence and drug abuse. He had several arrests and convictions for assault, robbery, and possession of firearms.
He locked his daughter in a basement for 24 years and abused her every single day, and she even fathered 7 of his kids. This case might rival the Hello Kitty case on how disturbing it truly is. Let's talk about the Puffer case, also known as the Joseph Fritzl case. He had this whole thing planned out years before the forced abduction of her. He remodeled their home in Austria. He had a whole basement area there for the captivity ahead. He even told everyone that she ran away. He even convinced his own wife that she ran away to go join a cult. Elizabeth Fritzl in the picture behind me, she raised 7 children in that basement, and they all actually survived. Almost all of those kids didn't even see daylight until their adulthood. 24 years down there, most of those kids are fully grown adults. Back in 1984, when he was building his new basement, when he knew he was going to abduct his own daughter, he said, "Hey, come down here, help me put up the last door to the cellar." She agreed to help him. He put a cloth over her face and had her unconscious in there. And apparently the sexual abuse started when she was just 11 years old. She was 18 at the time of her capture. Also, he tricked the wife. He took 3 of those kids from her and then staged them as babies that were left on the doorstep by Elizabeth, who he said ran away to join a cult. He also fabricated notes from Elizabeth to him and his wife saying, "This is my child, please raise it for me, you guys." And the wife believed him. She eventually had twins. One of the twins, whose name was Michael, died, and he incinerated the corpse, apparently. He was on oath admitting that he incinerated it. After he got caught, there were so many crimes he was implicated with. Apparently, he assaulted a 24-year-old woman at knife point. He served 18 months in prison, but then got it expunged from his record. He did the same thing again to a 24-year-old woman years later. On top of that, he was also the top suspect for 4 missing persons reports. All of those bodies would end up, turning up as murdered bodies. You might be asking, 24 years, why the hell didn't anyone go down and investigate this random cellar this guy, built? Apparently, he was very, very protective of his cellar, and then he had a special code you had to get into, and that's how he kept her captive and stuff. His wife, all the workers, anyone that came to his house didn't even mess with that realm of the house. They kind of just stayed in their own bubble, which honestly is kind of terrifying, to begin with. Everyone knew this guy was a short fuse. Her 19-year-old gets sick. She convinces the father to bring the daughter to the hospital, right? He tells the doctor the story about how his daughter joined the cult. The doctor and others get on TV saying, please stop joining the cult. Come back, help your daughter out. She then convinced the father to, let her go visit Kirsten, the daughter, at the hospital. As soon as they got there, all the plans blew up, They suspected sexual abuse right away when they saw how malnourished and sick she was. I'm glad the original daughter, Elizabeth, actually got out and got to the hospital, because if she didn't go to the hospital to visit the 19-year-old, I don't think she would have escaped. She also brought her 2 sons with her to, kind of testify that they were living in a literal shack in a basement for 24 years. She told police also she would be interviewed on the one condition that she never has to see her father again because of all the torment she went through. The father got hit with so many charges like incest, murder, enslavement, all of that stuff, failure to seek medical attention for all the kids that were getting sick and his own daughter, Elizabeth, too. He pled guilty to all charges. Initially, he was hesitant to, but after the trial started, there was no way this guy was getting out of there. He got sentenced to life in prison. He did not get a slap on the wrist this time. Now, as for Elizabeth, she changed her name. She has a partner. She's raising the kids in a different area. She's also trying to undo a lot of the traumas that her father brought to her. That 24 years of that is a lot. That's a big burden. Now, of course, after Joseph, his wife found out everything, she divorced him immediately. He has been, transferred to a regular prison now. He's not in a psychiatric prison or a maximum security prison now. At his age, he's not really a threat anymore, so the Austrian government moved him to a really chill spot now. But I hope his daughter Elizabeth can heal from all the past traumas. Her children are now ages 21 through 36. That's the range. Now, hopefully Elizabeth can undo a lot of that trauma. It's a big burden, like I was saying earlier. She lost some of the best years of her life to that trauma, too.
Austin police say that 22-year-old Nelly Dinora Rivera Felipe is the child's mother, and she's also responsible for dumping her baby here at this apartment complex off of North Lamar. Now she is being charged with felony child endangerment and abandonment.
He heard a cry coming from the dumpster. He said he didn't know if it was a bird, maybe an animal or something like that, but he said it might be a baby.
But what neighbors heard coming from a dumpster in North Austin on Saturday was a newborn baby.
They heard her cry, so she saved herself before anybody could save her. Umbilical cord still there. She had her overnight.
The she they mention is 22-year-old Nelly Dinora Rivera Felipe. Police say she's the infant's mother and dumped her baby there.
She is currently charged with abandoning or endangering a child, with imminent danger, a second-degree felony.
Police say they were able to identify the mother using security footage and witness testimony. They believe the baby girl was born sometime on September 19th and abandoned the next day.
With that statement, she believed the child was lifeless.
Brandon Isabel is the man who unalived his baby mama after asking her to meet up. He then shot that woman 5 times in her head and neck, kidnapped her 2-day-old daughter, then threw the baby into the Mississippi River, and her body was never found. So this is Danielle. This is their daughter, Kennedy. Now, Danielle gave birth to Kennedy January 31st of 2022. And the whole time that she was at the hospital, the only person that was there with them was Brandon, due to the fact it was COVID restrictions going on and only one visitor per room. See, Danielle never knew that the whole time her baby daddy was plotting against her. He was just using this to get on her good side and be able to be in her presence so he can execute his plan. See, at the time, Brandon was married to a woman. He was also dating another woman named Artisha, and he was still dealing with Danielle on the side. February 1st, 2022, Danielle and Kennedy is discharged from the hospital, and she goes to her parents' house so they can be around the baby. Now, the mom will later come out and say that they were only there for like an hour or so before Danielle told them that she needed to leave and go back to the hospital. The whole time, she was lying to them because she initially left to meet up with Brandon. She just didn't want her family to know. Now, shortly after Danielle left, her mom did call her because she was concerned about the baby being out already, and Danielle answered the phone and was like, "Hey, I'm getting the baby out the car. I'll call you right back." Her mom never heard from her again. They later reported Danielle missing. Police would later discover her car parked in Whitehaven with her body still inside, riddled with bullets, covered in blood. Now, after doing further investigation, they started to search for the baby. They then tracked down Brandon, and that's what leads us to where we are now. During interrogation, he tried to deny everything at first, and then he came out and said, "Hey, I shot her." At that point, the police had never even mentioned her cause of death. He didn't want to come out and say exactly what he did to the baby. He just kept saying, like, "I left the baby near Mud Island." So that made the police start searching Mud Island, but unfortunately, they were never able to recover the remains. Now, a few feet away from the river, police did discover the baby hat, and the grandma would later come out and confirm that this was her granddaughter's hat. This is the car seat that was also found in the dumpster of a Walmart in Whitehaven, somewhere close to where Danielle's body was found. Brandon is currently on trial as we speak, and this is day 3 of his trial. This man has pled not guilty. I will be back to update y'all when they sentence this man, and I hope it's 3,000 years. Rest in peace to the beautiful Danielle and to the beautiful Kennedy. Y'all, I was actually friends with Danielle on Facebook, so that's why I can easily speak on this story, because I actually watched this play out in real time. I pray they family find peace one day with this whole situation, and I pray one day that they can at least recover some type of remains to get closure with Kennedy.
She's just delayed somewhere. Maybe she's helping a friend or one of the guests is having problems. Their first stop was Vanessa Green's house. The bride-to-be met them at the door, still half asleep from the previous evening. When the detectives explained the reason for their visit, she immediately woke up completely. Sybil is missing? But how? She left us around midnight saying she was walking home. It's only a 20-minute walk, Vanessa said fearfully. Tell us more about last night, Shaw asked. Well, we got together at my place at 7 in the evening. There were 7 of us girls. We made dinner, played games, and discussed the wedding. Sybil was in a great mood, helping everyone and laughing. Vanessa paused. She had a couple of glasses of wine, but she was perfectly sober when she left. She even offered to help me clear the dishes, but I said I could manage. Did she mention any problems at home or at work? No, on the contrary. She talked about how well she got along with her mother-in-law and that she and Dylan were thinking about having children. She said she was very happy. The detectives obtained a list of all the bachelorette party attendees and their contact information. Interviewing the other friends did not yield any new information. They all said that Sybil was in a good mood and that nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The route from Vanessa's house to the Ray family home ran through quiet residential streets. The detectives drove along it, stopping at every house where the lights were on or there were signs of nighttime activity. But none of the neighbors they interviewed had seen Sybil that night. By evening, the search had yielded no results. Hospitals and morgues reported no admissions of women matching her description. Sybil's cell phone was still unavailable, and attempts to track it showed that the last signal was received around midnight from a cell tower serving the area around Vanessa's house. The detectives returned to Ray's house to report on the investigation. Dylan met them at the door with hope in his eyes, but when he saw their faces, he knew there was no good news. We interviewed all the bachelorette party guests and residents in the area, Callista reported. Your wife did leave Vanessa's house around midnight and headed home. After that, her trail goes cold. Dorothea, sitting in the living room with a cup of tea, sobbed. What could have happened to her? She's so careful. She never talks to strangers on the street. We're continuing the search, Shaw assured her. Tomorrow morning, we'll bring in additional resources and check the surveillance cameras in the area. So far, we haven't found any signs of violence or coercion. Dylan hugged his mother, and both looked confused and frightened. There was nothing suspicious about their behavior, only genuine concern for their loved one. As they left the house, the detectives exchanged opinions. So far, it looked like an accident or a random crime. The family seemed perfect, and Sybil's disappearance was a total shock to everyone who knew her. The call came in on Wednesday morning, when detectives Shaw and Boynton had been searching for Sybil Ray for 3 days with no luck. A mushroom picker who had set out at dawn in a forest 20 miles from the city stumbled upon a body in a small hollow between oak trees.
Every clip you watch today is more than just a story. It's a chilling reminder that real life can be darker than fiction. If these crimes shook you, disturbed you, or left you with questions, don't stay silent. Hit that subscribe button to join a community that refuses to forget. Like this video to keep these stories alive. Share it to spread awareness, and drop a comment with your thoughts. Who do you think was really behind it, or what part shocked you most?